The Inheritance Cycle Trilogy by Christopher Paolini. If you're just here for a quick recommendation, I can say with 100% certainty that you need to read this series. It's by far one of the best fantasy series that I have ever read. It has great sword fights, great gruesome battles, dragons, magic, elves, dwarves, all that stuff. If that even remotely piques your interest and you want some good storytelling, this is absolutely going to be right up your alley. And if you're a veteran of the genre, I think you're going to find that all the stories combined add up to one awesome saga. And you will not be disappointed. The author has even made up his own ancient language, which is weaved seamlessly throughout the world, which is connected to magic and all of that. So I won't give away too much because a lot of it is very integral to plot, details, and world building, but it's a great, great series. So it all starts with this guy right here. This is Eragon, the first book in the series, and forewarned, we'll get into just a little bit of spoilers as we talk about each book, but I'll try not to get too in-depth. It's just a book recommendation after all. So Eragon, some might be confused at the very beginning, like I did before. When I picked up this book for the very first time, Eragon, well, that's got to be the name of the dragon, right? Well, no. Eragon is actually the name of the main character. And Eragon is in this book, he is 16 and just trying to figure out his way, what he's going to be doing with his life. Essentially, you know, the things that all teenagers do. And he's hunting in the woods. He's an avid hunter. And all of a sudden, a dragon egg appears right in front of him. And he's not entirely sure it's a dragon egg. You know, dragons have been wiped out from the world for a long time now. And all of a sudden, one appears in front of him. And he figures it out soon after he brings it back home, and his world is completely turned upside down. And the story just goes from there. And it goes at a quick pace with this book, too. So once we get going, we do not stop with this book. It's just beat after beat, action after action. We get great sword fights, great characters that are fleshed out, great world building, and a lot of twists and turns. Great fight scenes, great battles, and the way that our dragon develops alongside our main character, Eragon, is something that's really cool. The bond that they create as they become dragon and rider together. So, highly recommend Eragon. To get started here, you won't be disappointed. It's a very awesome read, a very awesome paced book. So, next in the series we have here is Eldest. Eldest is an interesting one. So, with Eldest, obviously a continuation off of the first book, pretty much right after the events end of the first book, we have Eldest taking place. So the book is great. I will say, as far as peaks and valleys go in a series, we have a good peak, and then towards the first 2/3 of this book, in my opinion, it kind of dips into a little valley. The pace is slowed a little bit, and I'll get into reasons why. And then it picks right up right at the end. And then as we continue on into the rest of the series here, it just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. And then we get a nice level off point. But for Eldest, it kind of has to take one for the team, essentially, because as Eragon and his dragon are thrust into the world of dragon riders and who the evil big bad is in the series and how they can become stronger to take him down, they have to, of course, kind of learn about their history as far as dragon riders go, how Eragon can overcome a physical limitation, and how he can just gain more skills in general. And a lot of that is kind of classroom sessions, quite literally. So we're with Eragon as he learns throughout his lessons and studies and things with his teachers. Teachers. And it's just kind of, you know, you're kind of sitting through school with him and you're figuring things out with him. And, you know, that's kind of most of Eragon's journey in this book. But once he reaches a certain point and then he like levels up, then it just kind of takes off from there. And the nice thing about this book too is that it's also cut up between two other characters. And don't get me wrong, Eragon is still the main character in this book as well as the entire series, but this is kind of the starting point where we find different chapters dedicated to different characters. And a certain character, which I'll just name as it's Eragon's cousin, his name is Rorin. He steals the show. The stuff that he has to go through in this book, the decisions he has to make, and the situations he's thrust in are it's like the Joker in The Dark Knight. He just steals the show every time he shows up in a chapter. He's just straight brute force. He's got to do what he's got to do, as opposed to Eragon's, magical abilities that he's got. Rorin's got the, just I got to use my muscles and my fist and just beat my way through this thing. And it's just awesome because of that. So I recommend this book as well. Again, it's probably for me the lower dip in the valley. And I will say the beginning of the book too kind of confused me a little bit because it has, within like the first 10 pages, things happen from the end of this book so fast where like I thought it was a dream for Eragon. Like he's just dreaming all these things, like a nightmare after the battles in this book. But like the things that happen within those 10 pages are actual, like, no, this is what's happening. And I'm like, wait, I thought this was something that was just like, oh, he'll wake up and it's not really like this, right? But no, it actually is. And it just kind of happens so quick. And then now we just got to go with the book. But once we get past that, and then we kind of get through Eragon's studies and learn with him. And it's important stuff. It has to be written and told in this book because it's the world building, and you have to have a book pretty much that's got your world building in it at some point. But Rorin's chapters make up for a lot of the action that you want with Eragon that kind of came with this book. So third in the series here is titled Brissinger. And really quick disclaimer, or fun observation, I'd say. If you looked at these two books, it might be hard to see with the camera, but if you look at these two books, in person at least, you might guess that Eldest is the bigger book. It's thicker, it's got more pages, you'd think, but Brissinger looks a little smaller. However, Brissinger has many more pages, probably 100, 200 more, I'd have to crack open the book, than Eldest does. So Brissinger is jam-packed with story. And the pages, because Brissinger has much more content as far as the story goes than Eldest, the pages you can feel are a little bit more thinner than Eldest, but it doesn't make it any less of a quality. I mean, the pages there's still substance to them, but they're just a little thinner. Just FYI, just a fun fact. But this book is awesome. It takes the best things out of these two books, action, and some of the things that Eragon achieves and kind of levels up with in this book, and throws them all. Okay, we're starting fresh with new abilities and everything in this book. And Brissinger is an interesting title because it is the name of one of the... It's the ancient language word for fire. It's not really much of a spoiler. Once you figure out why this is called Brissinger at a certain point, you'll be like, oh, that's so cool. But this is just a fantastic book. It's got action beat after action beat. And then there is just so much that happens with different characters. It's just a book that you'll fly through. There's just so many things happening at a brisk pace. And this is probably one of my favorites out of this whole series here, these 4 books. This is probably, it's tough, tied for my top, if not my second favorite, right behind Inheritance right here. So originally, there were supposed to be 3 books in this series. We had Eragon Eldest, and then Brissinger was supposed to top it all off. But the author could not really fit everything that he wanted to fit in this book, and he had to split it off into 4 books. So instead of becoming the Eragon trilogy, it became the Inheritance cycle. So bringing us to our 4th book here, obviously since this is the last in the series, it wraps everything up. most of everything, which is cool here, most of everything that's talked about in each of the books, all the threaded plot points, all of the items and abilities and things that characters gain are kind of tied up. By the end of this book, most everything that the author has touched on in the past is at least touched on again to make sure that those things aren't forgotten about. And this book is awesome because, like Brissinger took the best of these two books, Inheritance takes the best of all three of these books and throws them into this. There are a ton of different battles, tons of different characters that come in that are all tied together with the story and Eragon's journey very nicely. And it's just a great book to level off the entire series and end on a really good high. With that being said, there are some critiques online about this book's ending. So after the big bad in the series is dealt with, it's kind of the aftermath that people tend to think that the story kind of just drops off and ends. And that's true to an extent. So without getting too much into the spoilers here, after the big bad is dealt with, Eragon is kind of left thinking what he wants to do next. And he goes through kind of weeks to months of trying to just figure that out with his dragon and figuring out like what he's going to become. And without the author diving into these different things that he does, the book kind of just like summarizes his journey to getting to the place where he wants to be quickly, because if that was kind of drawn out, the book would become very long and the pace would kind of dull a lot. So what happens here is that the book is kind of like, it just ties up the loose ends, not in a bad way, but just like quick enough so the series can end. You know what I mean? It'd be kind of like after, Frodo, after he throws the ring into Mount Doom, it's just like what he does between leaving on the boat to with the elves, the stuff he did between then, it would just be kind of drawn out. So this book does a great job just ending the series in general, and it does what it needs to do at the very end there just to tie it up, like I said. But the action, the characters, all the things that Eragon has gone through in these books is tied up nicely in this book. And this is probably my top book out of all of the rest of the books here in the series, just because of the action, the characters, the world building, the things Roran does. And again, it bounces between 2 to 3 to sometimes 4 different characters between Eldest, Brissinger, and Inheritance here. But in a great way, everything ties together. Nothing is left just out in the wind, forgotten about. So highly recommend the Eragon series here. Next up, actually, the author expanded upon. I won't show it because it's kind of, well, maybe I will. So the author expanded the series further into kind of like a side story here with Murtagh, who's another sort of main character in the series. And this takes place after Inheritance here, but is the first in a duology of books. So after this book, we got one more coming in regards to Murtagh. And I'm kind of holding off to wait to read this one until the second one comes out, because I know if it's anything like these books here, we're going to have a long wait for the next book in this series if I just read this one right now. And so I'm just probably going to just quell my desire here and wait till the second one's out before I read both of them at the same time. And I believe, if I've heard right, there's more coming after that to expand the world of Eragon in general. So that's the recommendations and quick reviews. Please go read this series. This is amazing. This is going to look very nice on your shelves too. And these are the first editions of the books, I believe. And there's this one still, at least, well, all of these are still holding up after years and years of ownership. Obviously, these two here are the most recent. I can't remember exactly when these came out, this last one here at least. But this one here was around like 2005. This one was like 2007. And then, kind of going by years like that is when these next ones came out. Murtagh over there came out just recently within the past year or two, something like that. So the author's still writing and the story is still expanding. And the cool thing is that this book just focuses on its own story. There are no real world slip-ins here as far as like politicalness and like just my ideology is better than your, that stuff. If you hate that stuff like I do and you just want a good story, then look no further than this. Every character does what they're supposed to do. They're not doing things just because they should. They're doing things because that's what the character is just meant to do in the story. And it all makes sense within the world. And it's just an awesome, awesome read. So please go check this out. Thank you very much.